Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Nick O'Leary, and today we've got the ultimate comparison video for you all, and that is the Mercedes-Benz EQA, Mercedes-Benz EQB, and the Mercedes-Benz EQC. So, which one is for you? Well, hopefully this video will cover just that, but first, let's show them off. So in this comparison video today, I'm going to be covering the dimensions of the cars, their exterior designs, interior space, boot, electric motors, and their charging capability. But to start, let's look at the price. So then guys, if you're considering going all electric for your next car, you've probably come across at least one of these three models. Now currently in the world of Mercedes-Benz, you can order about 8 electric models and Smart at the moment. However, I've heard there are more on their way as well. Pricing for the EQA starts at just under £50,000, move to the EQB and then it goes over that £50,000 mark, but then go to the EQC and that starts at £70,000. So let's have a look at what the differences are on the exterior. So looking at the dimensions of these three electric cars, of course it starts in the world of Mercedes-Benz in electric with the EQA. Now, some people sometimes are put off by large SUVs or large cars, but the EQB is actually the same width, mirror to mirror, as the EQA. But it is slightly longer at 222mm over the EQA, and then when you jump to the EQC, that is 87mm longer than the EQB. So these are kind of in size order at the moment. The EQC is also slightly wider as well compared to the other two at 76mm more, but the main differences between them are in the design. So when it comes to exterior design, take the EQA as a starting base and compare that with the EQB. The EQB has some squared off looks, and that's actually been done on purpose to maximise that space on the inside. And yes, this car is actually a 7-seater, so you can fit 7 people in this car, so it's a very, very practical car. However, the EQC has some curves in its bodywork, so it's kind of the opposite of the EQB. The EQB having kind of a more of a squared off design, maximising that practicality, but the EQC has that curve in the bodywork for people who don't really like a squared off design in a car. But it does have its own trick up its sleeve, as it is the fastest one out of these three, but we'll cover the electric motors in a minute. So when you're comparing the boots between these three models, the EQA has a 340-litre boot shown here, but there is also a tiny bit of space just underneath, so if you're clever at wrapping up a charging cable, you can just about get it under there, and it saves taking up your precious space at the top. However, the EQB sadly doesn't have that underfloor storage space, mainly because its space has been taken up by the seats in the back. So this is of course if you're going to use it as a 7-seater, but most people actually just use it as a 5-seater. So if you're going to do that, just pull these red cords here. That's 1 and 2. And then you've got a boot that goes up to 495 litres. So that is a huge increase over the EQA. So it just depends whether you're going to use it as a 5-seater or a 7-seater. But there again, I'm sure most people will probably use it as a 5. And you can actually move those seats forwards and backwards as well, which I'll show you in a minute. And then finally guys, on the EQC, now of course this one isn't a 7-seater, but it does have that same sort of practicality in terms of boot capacity. So the EQB was 495 litres, this one is 500 litres, and it has probably the most space underneath the floor as well out of the three models. So yes, you can put the charging cable under here and even some other things as well. So all that's really good. What about the rear seats? Moving on to the rear seats, the EQA is loosely based on the very popular Mercedes-Benz GLA, which actually over the years has gained 12 centimetres of extra headroom. So this of course carries over to the EQA as well. Jump into the EQB and this is where you see all of that practicality of space. For starts, you can adjust the legroom here forwards and backwards, so you can basically adjust your legroom to adjust legroom for the third row. In the third row there's USB-C ports and cup holders for the back passengers and also adjustable headrests. Move to the EQC and there'll be slightly less headroom than the EQB due to its body styling, but the interior does get a huge upgrade in build quality, and as the car is slightly wider from mirror to mirror, you get that extra space in terms of kind of shoulder room on the inside as well. Now briefly moving on to the front, the EQA and EQB have almost the same identical interiors apart from the increased headroom in the EQB due to its larger size. However, the EQC does have a slightly different design, but most of the controls are in the same place. All three models feature MBUX, which is one of the latest multimedia systems by Mercedes and is extremely intuitive with the most common features shown first. All are touchscreen along with a touchpad and touch controls on the steering wheel, so you can choose how you'd like to operate it. And all three also have the Hey Mercedes voice assistant. So let's take a look at some of the more finer details and things that differ between these three models, and that will of course be their electric motors and batteries. Right then guys, so on to the technical part. So let's cover the three models here and their electric motors first. So starting up with the EQA, I will just add that every model you see here is 4MATIC, so Mercedes-Benz's four-wheel drive, with the exception of the entry-level model, the EQA 250. So the 250 is front-wheel drive, but every other model that I describe here today is Mercedes-Benz's 4MATIC four-wheel drive system. So starting out with the EQA, it starts at an EQA 250, an EQA 300 and an EQA 350. So the latter two, the 300 and 350, are 4MATIC, the four-wheel drive. So 190 horsepower for the entry-level one, then you've got 228 and then 292 horsepower available on the other two. Go to the EQB, for example, that starts out on an EQB 300, that's 228 horsepower, then go to an EQB 350, again all four-wheel drive, then that goes to 292 horsepower, so a little bit more power. But this is where the EQC shines. Again, that one is four-wheel drive as well on the 4MATIC, 408 horsepower, called an EQC 400. So that is very, very fast. Now, while I'm on topic of those, let's have a look at their batteries. So, of course, with the EQA and EQB, they actually share the same battery technology. So these are 66.5 kilowatt hour batteries. And the EQC actually has a larger battery, so that is an 80 kilowatt hour battery. So that one's going to take just a little bit longer to charge, which brings us very neatly onto how long do they take to charge. Each model here does have the capability for charging at home via AC charging, so like on the wall box. You can use a 3-pin connector, but it does take quite a long time, so I would advise and probably recommend getting like a wall box installed so then you can reduce that charging time. But most importantly, these cars do have DC as well, DC charging capability, which means they can charge from 0 to 80% in virtually no time at all. But you do need to find a charge point which can obviously output that speed. So in terms of their capability, the EQA and EQB can charge at a rate of 100 kilowatts, and that will take about 32 minutes if you find a 100 kilowatt charger. If you want to find some really fast charge points, I'd recommend a company called Ionity. They have kind of got a big infrastructure across Europe, and it is growing massively in the UK, so that's kind of how you get those fast charge speeds. But there's loads of other companies as well putting these really, really fast ones out. However, when it comes to the EQC, as it has an 80 kilowatt hour battery, it is going to take a little bit longer, so it's 40 minutes, but it can charge at 110 kilowatts. Just bear in mind all the figures I quoted there are 0 to 80%, just because lithium-ion batteries do charge a little bit faster up to the 80% mark, and then after that they kind of slow up. The same as your phone and laptops and things like that. So that brings us very neatly onto the car's all-electric range. Now actually, in a weird turn of events, considering these have 66.5 kilowatt hour batteries and the EQC is 80, they actually all deliver around about the same range. So the EQA is rated at 264, EQB 257 and the EQC 252. Now these are all on WLTP tests, so that stands for a worldwide harmonised light vehicles test procedure, and it kind of shows you the best range that you can achieve from these cars in ideal conditions. I have actually done a video on how to maximise your range, so if you do own one of these cars and you wanted to get the max range out of it, I'll pop a link on the banner up above. But yes guys, that is all of the technical aspects of these three cars. So what's the verdict then? So then guys, to summarise on these 3 electric models, which one is the right one for you? Well, this all depends on what you're looking for from your next car. So if you take the EQA for example, that's based on the Mercedes-Benz GLA and is one of Mercedes-Benz's best-selling models. So kind of from its entry-level kind of starting price, it's very appealing to most. But if you do want bigger car, for example, so you've got a bigger boot, more space in the rear for rear passengers, and even, you know, add an extra 2 passengers, the EQB is definitely the one to go for. But if you want to go the opposite way and go for an EQC, go for something with a bit of a slopey roof and a bit more styling on the body shape, EQC is definitely the way to go. Again, 408 horsepower on that car, so it's rapidly quick. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Huge shout out to Sandown Mercedes-Benz as they help provide access to, well, these 3 cars you see here today to make this video for you all. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next week, we'll see you then.